Hello and welcome to Tomi Talks TV. I have one singular goal with this show, and that is to help you make smarter decisions so that you can have better relationships. I'd like to start, as usual, by saying a very big thank you. Thank you for all your likes and your shares and your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. I really, really appreciate you because you're helping us spread the message further, faster. So thank you very much indeed. Now, today I wanted to talk about a subject that I have titled The Facts About Divorce. I know this is a huge one, and let me just start by saying that this is not a theological debate on the rights or wrongs of divorce. That's a discussion for another time. But today I just wanted to share a few thoughts that might help you if you're contemplating divorce at this time. Specifically, I want to look at some statistics around divorce. So I came across some statistics in a book that was written by a woman called Linda Waite, who carried out some research at the University of Chicago. And this book is called The Case for Marriage. It's an excellent book, very well researched. They carried out some research on unhappy marriages and whether they were able to improve over time. And what they found for me was really astonishing. That's why I felt that I needed to share it here. So, one of the things that they found was that 86% of unhappily married couples who they surveyed and then who stuck together found that 5 years later their marriages were happier. 86%. So they were unhappy initially, and then they just decided to stick together, and 86% of them later on in 5 years time found out that their marriages were happier, and most of them said that they had become very happy indeed. Now I think those are statistics that we should really pay attention to. In fact, nearly three-fifths of those who initially said they were unhappy and stayed together rated the same marriage, not a different one, the same marriage as either very happy or quite happy 5 years later. And get this, the very worst marriages were the ones that showed the most dramatic turnaround. So I'm quoting specifically from them. 77% of unhappily married people who rated their marriage as very unhappy said that the same marriage was either very happy or quite happy 5 years later. And I think this is worth pondering because her conclusion from this research was that permanent marital unhappiness is surprisingly rare among couples who decide to stick in their marriages. So, a lot of times people think, well, it's always going to be this way, and, there's just really no point sticking with this marriage and all that. But she found in her research that permanent unhappiness is surprisingly rare among couples who decide to stick it out in marriage. And, it's worth mentioning that those changes were not as a result of counseling or intervention or anything like that. It was just simply people staying together and choosing to make it work. And also, these were not specifically Christian couples that they surveyed. It was a wide segment of society that was polled. So what this means for me is that all hope is not lost for your marriage if you decide to stick with it. The difficulty is that, when we're going through really difficult times in our marriages, when we're going through dark times in our marriages, the devil likes to take a photo of that moment and show it to us over and over and over again to tell us that it will never get better. You see, and the irony of it is that if you do make an emotional decision to get, divorced, the same devil will be on the other side of that decision condemning you and telling you what a terrible person you are because you are divorced. He's really crafty. Whether you believe in him or not, whether you believe he exists or not, the devil is really, really crafty. So what I'm saying is this, I know that there are certain really serious situations, in marriages where people take a decision that the marriage is no longer tenable. So maybe there's been serial infidelity or grievous abuse or maybe even abandonment. I get that. But interestingly enough, I was reading somewhere else that statistics suggest that 86% of divorces are not even for any of these serious reasons. So it's worth reflecting on why you're thinking that the time has come for you to end it all. Why you're thinking that the only solution is divorce. A lot of times when people get divorced, maybe it's just some other difficulty, which in the moment seems like it will never change, and people make an emotional feeling decision based on the way they feel in the moment. And let me say this, emotions are very real. And when someone is going through marital difficulty, the emotional pain can be all consuming in the moment. However, it's worth noting that emotions are subject to change. We all know that emotions, they're here today, they're gone tomorrow. The fact that you feel this way about your marriage today doesn't mean that you will always feel this way. Negative emotions, when we get involved in all those negative emotions, they are always magnified because we're dwelling on the negativity about the other person at that particular point in time. But negative emotions are subject to change, and that's the bit that I really want to emphasize. So I'm saying here that don't make a permanent decision on the basis of a temporary emotion. The fact that you feel this way today doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's permanent. It doesn't mean that it's not going to change. Now, I think I'd like to just sort of wrap this up by sharing with you three pieces of advice that can help you if you want to take a bad marriage to a better place. And a couple of them were from this research, and then there was another one that I'd like to add on to the end. So the first one is this: have a strong work ethic towards marriage. Have a strong work ethic towards marriage, because the research that I cited at the start, they found that two factors that predicted the likelihood that a marriage would improve over time were: number one, a good work ethic. That was one of the strongest ones. A good work ethic. So people who have a strong work ethic, they're willing to roll up their sleeves, they're willing to go to work on their marriages. While some people who don't have a strong work ethic, they're just thinking, they want to take a laissez-faire approach to marriage. They expect that everything will just fall into place without working at it. Nothing could be further from the truth. The best marriages take work. No matter how wonderful they look on the outside, they take work. You see, and lots of work, over time it might look like this is just too much, but the truth is that the dividends are well worth the effort. So I really want to encourage you, have that kind of ethic towards your marriage, that it's going to take work, but I'm willing to invest the work that is required. The second thing is this: don't hang around people who don't value marriage. Don't hang around people who don't value marriage. So again, this is from that research. They found that people who were more likely to improve their marriages had friends that did not value divorce. Because when we hang around people who advocate divorce, or we spend a lot of time consuming materials from people who advocate divorce, it normalizes divorce for us, so that the threshold becomes lower for us to take a decision. I was reading another piece of research, and it was stated that if a close friend of a person gets divorced, that person is 147% more likely to become divorced. Wow. I thought that was mind blowing. And then they also said that, if a friend of a friend of someone gets divorced, then that person is 33% more likely to be divorced. I found that really, really interesting. So essentially, what they're saying is this: divorce is contagious. Divorce is contagious if you're not careful, because the mindsets are transferable. The mindsets that drive divorce are transferable. Now, am I saying that you should abandon your friend just because they're going through a divorce? That's not what I'm saying. Some people have been through really difficult things, and what they need is love and support and encouragement. They don't need condemnation. However, it's worth you thinking about what their attitude is towards divorce. So you must discern people's attitude to divorce. Some people pass through a divorce, but for them it's a huge matter of regret, and they wish it was not so. And they are advocates for marriage in spite of their pain, and they've learned from their difficulties, and they want to share what they've learned so that other people don't make the same mistakes that they have made. But there are other people who go through divorce and they become advocates for divorce. For them, it's like, look, this issue of divorce, that's all about freedom. For them, just divorce the person and you will get free. Get rid of him, get rid of her, if they're not measuring up, and you'll be free. Those are precisely the kind of people that you should avoid in your friendship circle, and the kind of people that you should not be listening to on social media, because they will not encourage you towards your goal to save your marriage. And then the last one I'd like to say is this: drop the D word from your vocabulary. That word divorce, drop it from your vocabulary. There are people who threaten divorce every single time they have a disagreement with their spouse. And their words become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're the prophet of your own marriage. And that's one thing you must realize. You are the prophet of your own marriage. The more you say it, the more likely you are to do it. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. So the more you say it, the more likely it is that you will do it. Speak life over your marriage. Don't speak death over your marriage. Threatening divorce every single time, when there's a disagreement between you and your spouse, all that it does is that it creates an atmosphere of fear in a marriage. And then it makes it impossible for you to have honest conversations that could heal the marriage. So I really want to encourage you, drop the D word from your vocabulary if you want your marriage to work. Some people use the threat of divorce as a weapon, thinking that will force their spouse to improve. But a lot of times the reverse is the case. The more you say it, the stronger an option it becomes. And I also should say this, that if you're not yet married, one of the things that you should check with a prospective spouse is whether divorce is a live option for them. Because there are people who enter into marriage with the mindset that, well, if it doesn't work, I'm off. How do they feel about divorce? Because you don't want to marry somebody who will be off at the slightest hint of a challenge. You want to marry someone who is committed and determined to make it work regardless of what it will take. So it's really important. Drop the D word from your vocabulary. And I really, really hope that this has helped you and this has blessed you and that it has given you hope for your marriage. If this has helped you, please leave me a message on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or wherever it is you're watching. And if you've got a question you would like me to answer, then head on over to tomitalks.com/ask and I'll answer your question next time. See you next time. Bye bye.